SOS. The Commonwealth has been invaded by religious cults. We're all under threat. The United Nations and various religious cults have decided to take over our countries, and we all need to stand up and fight for the Commonwealth. Now, I've got some very interesting news to tell you. First of all, we're going to say SOS to the Majesty under the 1688 Bill of Rights and the 1689 Bill of Rights. SOS England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Australia and New Zealand, all the Protestant countries, and there aren't many left. And the 1688 Bill of Rights under the Will and Mary, this is a Bill of Rights that is a bill to them. It's not a bill to you, it's a bill to them. And in 1688, when they brought in the Prince and Princess of Orange, it was on the condition that they would fulfill this bill if they were to govern over us. The bill is to them. When they pass bills in Parliament, they're making bills for you. These are the things that you have to do to fulfill your societal obligations. But this bill, Will and Mary bill, is a bill to them from God of how they have to govern over us. And it's this bill that they're trying to desperately get rid of. Now, under that 1688 Bill of Rights, the main thing is that it forbids foreign governance over us. It also tells them that they have to govern us in a certain way, and it tells all the rules that they have to govern us. And it also says that they are equal to us, and if they don't govern us according to these rules, then their parliament or their queensmanship or their throne, or their judgeship or their courtyships, any of the ships that they sit on, they're all gone if they don't govern us according to these rules. Now, I know for the last 20 years, the common law groups have been saying we can't get into the court. They're saying it's a corporation, and we've always been a corporation. They brought in this new 1990 Bill of Rights and a new Bill of Rights in England, and a new Bill of Rights, human rights or something like that. And they're trying to tell you under that they brought in a law that you could not prosecute against them. But that doesn't apply to us in regards to our Will and Mary. That Bill of Rights only applies to all the foreigners that are coming into your country post-1840, actually. Post-18, maybe even post-18, around about post-1840, 1843, when they set up the birth certificates. Now, when they set up these birth certificates, they made us the owners of this corporation. So they aren't the owners of the corporation, we are. And as the owners of the corporation, whenever they try to bring in a false corporation or a false entity to govern over us, it's us as a corporation that's got to go to the court. And if we don't go to the court, nothing will get done. It's no good banging on the Governor-General's door and saying, help me, help me. You've got to go to the court and call them in to the court. And that is what I've done on the Nexus Lexus is an American law, and it took over the English law in 1973. And so they have been setting about to get rid of this 1688 bill that is to them, so that they can rule absolutely and not be under any restrictions. So this is what we've got to fight for. So they're trying to bring down the Commonwealth. They're trying to get rid of our 1688 Will and Mary. Now, on the 23rd of January, February, March, April, May, the 23rd of May, I did. My name is Catherine Ann Sixtus. Catherine Ann Sixtus, and I did take the Prime Minister Ardern, another minister, Chris Farfoy, the Minister of Justice, another minister, Andrew Little, another minister, Ashley Bloomfield. I did take them to the court to say to them that they're ruling us repugnantly to the 1688 Will and Mary. Now, none of them have committed any crimes, and this has nothing to do with them. What I want to show you is that you have to start taking these people to the courts, even the United Nations, even America, even LexisNexis. You've got to start doing it because they can't do it for you. Only you can do it because you are the directors of the corporation. I'm going to show you how that is so in a minute. Now, so that we had here from the 1688 Bill of Rights that says, His Highness the Prince of Orange, whom it has pleased Almighty God to make the glorious instrument of delivering this kingdom from popery and arbitrary power. Now, if you go and have a look in there, there's a thing called S1 and S2. S1 is all of the rights that they have to uphold for us. That is their bill to them to uphold to us. And one of those is the Protestants. It says that the subjects which are Protestants will have the right to arms. Now, I just want to tell you the difference between the American Constitution, which says that they have the right to bear arms, and our Bill of Rights, which says we have the right to arms. They aren't the same. In our common law, we were told that we wouldn't need guns and bombs to protect ourselves, but they would give us a strong law that we could always hold the Queen and the parliaments and the government to account. And so they gave us a set of rules in the 1688 where we can take those people to the court if we see fit. All right, now that's not the same as in America. America threw the British out, and then they said, we're not going to give you that power. We're going to manage all the government on our own, but we're going to give you the power to have guns. So all of their people are allowed to have guns, but most of our people in our common law countries aren't allowed to have guns. But our Protestant arms is the arms of the law, and they can't take it away from you. So the S1 contains all of the rights that says that the Protestant arms will be protected and that they can never, ever take that away from you. So that means if there's any point of law that they have made that looks to you to be repugnant, even if you only have a question of it, you're permitted to take that to the court and question it. And they can't stop you from going to the court. That is just the main point. Someone turned around and must have put it into somebody's head that courts were for criminals, but they were not. Courts were set up so that we, the people, the common law people, would be able to take our governments and queens and kings and popes to the court and hold them accountable. That's why the courts were set up, the first courts, all right? So that is the main thing. S2 of the 1688 Bill of Rights is all the things that they have to do to uphold the Bill of Rights, and it tells the various ways that they have to govern over us. And you have to go and read it. I'm not going to tell it all today, but then it also says if they don't do these things. So if these people here, but these people here are irrelevant. It really doesn't matter who's sitting up there. It can be the Australian Prime Ministers, it can be the Canadian Prime Ministers, it can be the English Prime Ministers, it can be the Irish Prime Ministers or the Scottish Prime Ministers. It's irrelevant who is sitting up on the board that needs to be going. What is relevant is that it says to us in S2 that we are permitted to take them to court if we see any law that seemed to be repugnant. And then it says that the only means is to petition to the court. Don't petition to Parliament. You ain't getting anywhere petitioning to Parliament. Now, you petition to the court, and the court is to give you a declaration. Once the court issues you the declaration, that declaration will go out across all the Parliament, and it will force them to stand down on that particular law, especially these United Nations laws. These United Nations laws are called instruments, but they are not the ultimate instruments of our country. And somehow, over the last 40 years, they've managed to flip that around and somehow make the United Nations as the constitutional and the statute instrument, and our Bill of Rights, they've somehow managed to make that to be this subordinate, and it's all up the wop. And so this is what I've taken to the court to say to them, that this 1990 Bill of Rights, this human rights of the United Nations, they're nothing to do with me. you want to have them, you have them, but they're not mine. And under those two, you're not permitted to take the government to court under the Declaratory Judgments Act, because it's a different law. It's an instrument, but it's not a statute instrument. It's an ordinary subordinate law. It's nothing to do with us. So you've all been using the wrong law for the last 20 years. I'm sorry to tell you that. Now, we get a lot of complaints about Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth was born into it. All of her family have no choice. They are born into this generation after generation, and they have absolutely no choice in the matter. And they are the ones where our Bill of Ancient Laws, ancient Protestant laws, sit on their shoulders. Well, they sit on the Institute's shoulders. The person, once again, no offense, Queen Elizabeth, but the person is irrelevant. It is the Institute that is a shelf that our law sets up, being the highest law of all. And whenever we have a problem, we petition to that shelf. Now, if that shelf is removed, we have to go and find another shelf. And the Majesty, everyone's saying, why doesn't the Majesty do something? Why doesn't the Majesty go and strike down the government? She's not allowed to. Do you know when she's allowed to? She's allowed to when you go to the court, you petition the court, and the call goes out that one of the Protestant subjects is called in that their ancient laws aren't being upheld. All right? Now, you might be wondering about this man over here, Tamati Waikanene. He was the first New Zealand person to make himself a subject under Her Majesty Queen Victoria, and there's a ship called the St. Pauli. It was a Germanic ship, and what I'm lately discovering is that there were dozens of these Germanic ships that were sent out into all the native lands. That's because the three religions, the Catholics, the Jews, the Islamists, the Jehovah's, the Mormons, whatever you want to call them, they have gone into all these countries and taken over all these countries. And all of these countries were absolutely, they had no power. So the Queen went in and took over 54 countries. And the main issue was in the 1688 Bill of Rights, it says no foreigners can govern over us, and no religious leaders can govern over us. That was the main point, and that was to give all the natives their countries back. But it didn't stop there. Those natives didn't have armies. She sent armies to them, and they needed people. The Anglo people and the German people were used as human shields. That's why we were sent there, not colonists. We were not colonists. We were sent as human shields to protect the natives of 54 countries from the three barbarous religions that sought to take them over and force them to be under each of their religions. That was what had happened. It happened in England, it happened in Germany. So this had already been fought already by the glorious revolution of 1688. Now, I've got some very important documents. So I did go to the court on the 23rd of May, and then I got struck out under the Mannix Law, which has been used for decades, using the 1990 Bill of Rights. And what the fight is, I sent it to appeal, and the appeal court sent me back the letter, and they said, you will come to the court, you will fight this case. And so they've got to come into the court, but we haven't set any court dates. We're just in preliminary stages. If anybody wants to offer me any assistance, I'm absolutely beside myself with not knowing what to do. But I've been watching the Tubies, I've been watching all the people, the common law people, and listening to what all they're saying. Some of them give me little gems, some of them don't give me little gems. But I will just tell you, where did I put? I want to tell you a little bit about the history of New Zealand so that you'll all know what's going on. Now, this occurred in all of our countries. So I've got this one here, which is a charter that was done with the New Zealand Corporation in 1841. And what it said was that by the name of the New Zealand Company, It said that, I'll read it to you. Now know ye that we of our special grace, certain knowledge and mere motion, have given, granted, and ordained, and by these presents for us our heirs and successors, do give, grant, and ordained, and then it's got some various names, our right and trusty and well-beloved William Henry Francis Lord Petre, and all and every such other person or persons as have become or shall at any time hereafter and from time to time become proprietors of the said company in manner hereafter provided, and and their respective executors, administrators, and assigns shall be one body politic and corporate indeed and in name, by the name of the New Zealand Company, and by that name shall have perpetual succession, and we shall have a common seal. Now, all the natives, each native tribe was given a common seal, and one Anglo tribe from Germany were given a common seal. And all the people on those papers that have those common seals, we've got various groups going around Australia, going around New Zealand, saying that they own the seals, but I don't think they do. And so we got given a common seal, and the only ones that have the power, I don't even think we have the power actually to remove. You can't remove, they're trying to make Australia and New Zealand republics. It's not possible unless every single person on those papers are either dead or they have agreed to throw the Majesty out. And I've got the paper of my family, the Sixtus family, with 5 Sixtus brothers, and I'm thinking that even my own families have betrayed my country. And if I have to go up against my own family, I don't even care, because we're not gonna let you take us under American rule and their crappy declaration where everybody's allowed to have guns and hundreds of kids are killed in the schools every year, and where they're not allowed to go to the parliament and hold their government to account as a layman, as a common law person. You're not allowed to do that in America, but we're allowed to do it in our countries, and I will not let anybody stand in my way and let them get away with putting us under that watered down crappy American version. We ain't going under it. So this next document that I had was this document here. Now this is a document, so that was 1841, and that was signed on, that was signed on the 12th of February 1841 at the Queen's Palace, right there in Westminster. This has got nothing to do with New Zealand, all right? This is signed in Westminster, and the people that are privy to this are permitted to go to Westminster and petition the Queen directly at Westminster under the Queen's Bench. Now, we've got another lot that's going under the King's Bench. I'm not sure about them, but presently I'm just sitting in the Queen's Bench. But if we need the King's Bench, we'll go to that too. We in New Zealand, we're pretty lucky in New Zealand, because we've got the King's Bench and we've got the Queen's Bench. We've got the King's Bench that want the Queen's Bench out. They're seeing that as their path. I'm seeing that we can use the King's Bench and the Queen's Bench to get what we all want. So let's just have a look and see. I'm not quite sure about that one. There's a lot of people fighting. So the next document that was signed was, now this is very strange, a ship called the St. Paulie arrived in New Zealand from Germany, all right? And Germany on the 14th day of June. Now, on exactly that day, Her Majesty has been graciously pleased to assent to the removal from them within this colony of the disabilities to which aliens are by law subject. So she didn't make them citizens of New Zealand, because they were not able to. They didn't have any citizenship or anything, but she just said, the people on this list, here's the list here that you can't see, but I can see it. The people on this list are not subject to alien laws in New Zealand, so they basically became natives. And she not only did she give them that, she also said that they would be deemed and taken to be natural born subjects of Her Majesty, as if they had respectively been born within the realm of England. So not only did she make these Germanic peoples subjects as if they had been directly born in England, she also, because English people that went to New Zealand were still in their alien status, she removed that from these people, okay? And then, so that was done, and then the directors of that company are here. So you'll see the AB manager, and then you'll see C, D, E, F, and G, H are directors, and then you'll see L, K, L, M, N, O. So they are all the directors, and then what it says here is that these people would be on the board of directors, the branch of the Union Bank of Australia, which since became the New Zealand and Australia Bank. And we do hereby declare that all the persons subscribed or annexed list of names is a true list of all the now existing members of the said company. Now, I'm a little bit unsure about this new whakaputanga because they're saying the true rulers. They removed native chiefs and they just put in true rulers. And this here is talking about a true list. And I think that each native tribe had a seal and each native tribe had a true list. This is the only Anglo true list, all right, to my knowledge, So that was the bank of the Union Bank of Australia, and it became a company, all right? So then after that, there was another supplemental charter on the 4th of August, 1843. So this was this was in June, all right? And then this was the supplementary that went together with the first charter. So these two charters go together. This charter was 1841. Then came the directors and the managers. And then came the supplementary charter to that, which come around the arse of it and blocked it all off, all right? So this was in August, and this was Victoria, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Queen Defender of the Faith, to all to whom these presents shall come and greeting, whereas under and by virtue in certain letters patent under the Great Seal of Great Britain, bearing date the 12th day of February in the 4th year of our reign. That was the 12th of February here, okay? Certain knowledge and mere something given, granted, and ordained that certain persons therein named or referred to should be one body corporate and body politic by the name of the New Zealand Company, to be established for the certain purposes therein mentioned, and have all and every powers therein set forth to enable them to carry such purposes into effect. And whereas the said New Zealand Company, having humbly besought us to extend the powers in our said letters patent, herein before recited and contained, now know ye that we of our special grace, certain knowledge and mere motion, have granted, ordained, and declared, and by these presents for us, our heirs and successors, do grant, ordain, and declare that the court of directors of the said company shall have power at any time or times hereafter, and from time to time, with the consent of a court of proprietors specially convened for that purpose. So that means that anybody that were on these lists, which includes the seals and the lists of each native tribe, including Nene's tribe, are the people that have the power to make laws, throw out the Queen, bring in the Queen. Australia's got these. Each of our countries have got these. Scotland's got them. Ireland's got them. England's got them. And so it's these people that have got all the power, all right? Now, if you're a descendant, as I am a descendant of 5 brothers, there were 5 Sixtus brothers on here, and I'm a direct descendant. Now, I know that the Sixtuses have been up to no good, and I know that there were certain lands, so the lands of the South Island, and I think even Port Nicholson, went into this block. And then we got this copy of deed, which was given on the 14th day of August, 1844. So these were all 1843, and then on 1844. And it's very strange how these documents all came to be, because Hobson, the Governor-General, had died in December of 1842. And so from 1842 until December of 1843, there was no Governor-General in New Zealand. But these papers here were done in Westminster, directly by Westminster, directly by Queen Victoria. So I'm not sure about what's going on there, but there's something going on there. This says this is a copy of the deed of the lands. Now, this is most of the South Island of New Zealand. So these people have got a lot of power. So one of the people on here on that document is Mueller, who is trying to get to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So we don't know. It says here the land of Waimea, Moturai, Whakatu, which is all of Nelson, Waimea, Moturai, Motueka, Ruaka, Taitapu, Maskapai, and all of those places. And it's written in New Zealand Maori languages all as well. And George Clark, Henry Butt, various others are on here who signed this deed, putting all of the South Island into the New Zealand Companies Corporation, where the people from the St. Pauli were the directors. And the bank that would be used for that would be the manager of the Union Bank of Australia in Nelson. And the Union Bank of Australia are these people up here. All right, so they were the directors of that. Now, after that, in 1865, there was another document. In 1865, it was that all of the Maoris then were deemed to be natural-born subjects of Her Majesty. So not everybody that came to New Zealand got to be a natural-born subject of Her Majesty. All right, so I'm not quite sure how it all worked out. Some after I think a little bit later, they got to be, citizens of New Zealand. I don't know, but it's a little bit different. But anyway, it says that they would declare that the jurisdiction of the Queen's Courts of Law extends over the persons and properties of all Her Majesty's subjects. So anybody that's in New Zealand who is a subject of Her Majesty, your properties are protected by this. So the SNAs don't apply to you because that's a United Nations law. You can go to the court and challenge all the SNAs if you are a subject of Her Majesty. Now, they've been going around telling everybody to leave their birth certificate. Throw out your birth certificate and they're going to give you a document from the United Nations, a travel document. And what happens is if you leave the birth certificate, that means that you've left this corporation that each of your tribes and many New Zealanders are in. And if you leave, been trying, because they've been coming after me hard to get me to leave my birth certificates because my name's on here. And so I've said, no, I'm not leaving my birth certificate. And now I've realised that we're in the corporation, the ownership of New Zealand, and we have a lot of power. And when we leave our birth certificate, we aren't able to get a passport because our passport is tied to the Majesty. And what they give us is a travel document from the United Nations. And in that moment, you become a refugee. And this travel document is a refugee travel document, and many countries won't even let you into their country with it. You can only go to some countries with it. And so once you've given up your passport, once you've given up your birth certificate, you can travel domestically, but you can't travel internationally. And when you want to travel internationally, you'll have a United Nations document saying basically that you're a denizen or a refugee. So you must not give up your birth certificates. Now, that the Queen's law, the Queen's courts, so the common law courts don't apply to everybody in our countries. Some people that come to our countries that are Jewish, Islamist, all of them, they don't use the Queen's courts, they use the civil court, they use the lower courts, the administrative courts is where they have to go, because they don't come under the Queen's law, because they haven't got that contract with the Majesty. So we've got a contract with the Majesty. Now, after that comes the Declaratory Judgments Act, and this was originally done on the 25th of September 1908. And what it says in here, this is what you use when you want to go to court. You must be careful, because there is a Declaratory Judgment Act of 2016, which is very different to this one, because that one includes the 1990 Bill of Workers' Rights Act, which is just an ordinary law. But it's only this one here that is your statute law that gives you the power over government. It gives you the power to call government officials to the court, even the Prime Minister, even the Queen, even the Commonwealth. You can call them with this document. And it says here that if any person, where any person claims to have acquired any right, so if you're a New Zealand Maori, you'll be on one of these, you'll have a seal, each of your tribes will have a seal. And if you're come from any of our Commonwealth countries, you will have the right. And if you're an Anglo person and you're on this document like me, then you'll have super right, because you're a director. Right. So under any statute, any regulation, any law, document, if any of us are interested in the construction or the validity of any law, it doesn't even need to be a problem with the law. It only needs to be if you think there's a problem with a law that they've made, if you think that a law that they made is repugnant, then you have the right to go to the court and question that. And they have to answer you, because they work for you. Presently, they haven't been letting people in the court because they've been using the 1990, and they've been saying that that's corporation under LexisNexis, which it is. But you common law people, you're not in that corporation. You're in another corporation. And even if they sold that corporation, I'm going to show you. Even if they sold your corporation to another corporation, the new corporation still has to follow the rules of the Will and Mary. And that is, foreigners can't govern in our country. If we have a problem with the law that they make, we can take them to court, all of those things. So we only have to have an interest or a question about it. And it says, such person may apply to the High Court by an originating summons for a declaratory order determining any question as to the construction or the validity of such statute, such regulation, such bylaw, such deed, will, document, title, agreement, memorandum, article, or instrument. Now keep that in mind. There are many, many instruments. America is an instrument with their Declaration of Inalienable Rights. United Nations is an instrument with their Declaration of Human Rights. England is an instrument with their Declaration of Ancient Protestant Rights. okay? The Islamic countries are their own instruments. The Jewish countries are their own instruments. The Catholic countries are all their own instruments. Everybody's got a lane, and everybody's got to get in their lane. The problem is that some people want to be in other people's lanes. They're not happy in their lane. They want their lane, and they want a part of your lane, and they want you to follow the rules of their lane. All right? Now, that's why the 1688 was created, because it said there's a few common laws that everyone can have, but they said everybody's got to stay in their lane. And when you step out of your lane, we're going to be able to take you to the court and tell you to get back in your lane. And it is a Protestant law. Why is it a Protestant law? It was a Protestant law because the Islamists, the Jews, and the Catholics were all able to be born into their religion. And anybody that wasn't born into their religion, they were called the Gentiles, and they had no laws to protect themselves. And each of those corporations, each of those corporations created laws that protected themselves, but had violent punishments against anybody that was not within their corporation. That's why. So in the Jewish corporation, for example, if you were to steal off of a Jew or, damage a Jew, they were permitted to, if you were a Gentile, they were permitted to stone you to death, decapitate you, burn you alive. However, if another Jew did that same thing to them, they were permitted to go to the court and get a punishment set for that person that did not include violence. So that's why, and that was the same for the Islamic and the same for the Catholic. So that's why they had to bring in the Protestant. Our one doesn't have any laws of violence against anyone, but our Protestant has protections for all of us against those 3 lanes. All right? So there's 4 lanes. Well, there's 5 lanes because now you've got the American lane, but they're kind of Jewish anyway. America's got some Commonwealth lanes as well. So the last one, so you know that, so what you've got here is you've got the directors of the company, all right, and they're in perpetuity, all right, and then you've got the Victoria number 11 that says that all the New Zealand Maoris will be natural born subjects, and it says that the Queen's law will be held over all of those persons and all of those properties, okay? So forfeiture of person without conviction, that protects your properties from SNAs, and you can go to the court with it. I can't go to court with you all. Then you've got your declaratory judgment that says if you have a question about the laws that they're making, you can go to court. So that's your Declaratory Judgments Act right there. Hope you can see it. And then the last one is called the Bills of Exchange, which came out in 1908. Now, I'm not allowed to mention names, but I was on the yellow brick road, and I did hear a little friend say click, click, click of Dorothy of the little red shoes, and then click, click, click with the little red shoes came up the Bills of Exchange. And then a bill is not just about money. There's 2 bills of rights in our Commonwealth countries at the moment. They've put in 2 bills of rights. They're both instruments. One bill of rights comes from the United Nations, and that there is a bill. That is a bill for all the immigrants, all the workers, all the refugees coming into your country. That is a bill to you, how you have to take care of them. You have to give them a house. You have to give them a job. You have to give them 100,000 settlement money. You have to give them schooling, healthcare, everything. That bill is for you, that the United Nations gave that bill to you. It's a bill to you. All right? our bill of the 1688 is a bill to Parliament. And it says here, where did I want to go here? So I got some, I'm not going to read you all, but this thing is amazing. But one of the main things says that if an instrument, so think 1688 Bill of Rights, no foreigners can govern over us. We have the right to our Protestant arms, which means we have the right to go to the courts. What else is there? They have to govern us equally. They're not allowed to take our money and give it to another group of people that they're forcing us, because that's what they're doing. When they force us to give a house, a job, and monies to people coming into New Zealand. See, if people want to come into New Zealand, they should have their own money. They should come in and apply for a job, and they should find their own housing, just like any New Zealander. New Zealanders, listen to me. When New Zealanders finish school, they've got to find their own job. When New Zealanders finish school, they have to find their own house, and they have to provide for themselves. And when somebody comes into New Zealand, that should be the case for them as well. But somehow the United Nations inflicted it and said, no, all you New Zealanders have got to pay for that. So they're an instrument, but it said, and that comes under, in the 1688, comes under allocating our money for things that we didn't give it for those purposes. We give our money to be used for New Zealand people to prosper. And our New Zealand and Australian people are sleeping in the streets. Our New Zealand and Australian people are no longer able to having their pensions removed from them because they can't afford it, because of all the people that have come in and only stayed for 10 years and are entitled to pensions in our country. So that money that they're spending on all those other people, they're taking our money and sending it out to other countries against our will. That's all wrong. So an instrument which does, and that's in the 1688, they're not allowed. An instrument which does not comply with these conditions, which orders any act to be done in addition to the payment of money, is not a bill of exchange, which means that the bills that they're making are not correct, and we have to start challenging them. An inland bill is a bill which is, or on the face of it purports to be, drawn and payable to the colony, drawn within the colony upon some person resident therein, and any other bill is a foreign bill. The human rights, the Declaration of Human Rights, is attached to the 1990 New Zealand Bill of Rights. And unfortunately, so it is a foreign bill, and it's not valid in our country. And so they've attached the declaration onto the 1990 Bill of Rights, where the 1990 bill is to you to pay everything for the United Nations, the whole human rights, all their laws, all these laws that they're sending through the court, all paid for by you. All right, so that is called a foreign bill, and the 1990 New Zealand Bill of Rights is a foreign bill in my Kate Floss unlegal, unlawyerly mind. So unless the contrary appear on the face of the bill, holder may treat it as an inland bill. Well, this is the problem. So the Human Rights Act and all the United Nations laws that they're forcing on us had an appearance of a face of another bill, which is the 1990 Bill of Rights, put on top of it. And so that's how they've done it. It's quite sneaky. And then the drawee, so it says here, when a bill, when it's the Human Rights Act, Section 5, KII, says in it that they want to make New Zealand bound to any international instrument. That means they can make any law that they like and force us to be bound. They can say all you New Zealand children have to leave your school and have no school, and all the foreign children that we're bringing will go to the school and take that from you. They can make any law that they want. When a bill contains words prohibiting transfer or indicating an intention that it should not be transferable, it is valid as between the parties. When the bill contains words prohibiting transfer. So our 1688 bill to Parliament has a non-obstant law, and it forbids the transfer of that bill. It means that any bills that they make, any laws that they make, have to fit with that 1688. And if they don't, you have the right to go to the court, and that's what I have done. Now, it says here, the bill is payable on demand. When you take your 1688 Bill of Rights to the court and you say, this law here is repugnant. So the repugnant one that I'm going for is that we have foreigners in our Parliament, and that's against our 1688 Bill of Rights under the supremacy law. They are ruling us by division. That is against the 1688 Bill of Rights. They are contracting secret deals with the natives behind our backs and taking all our resources and taking over all our powers. That is in the 1688 Bill of Rights. That's illegal. And they are, by Section KII, making us bound to any international instrument. That is removing the subjects of the Protestants. That's removing the Protestants' right to arms of law to protect themselves. They're trying to do freedom of religion, but we can't have freedom of religion because freedom of religion means decapitation for the Gentiles and the Goyim. So we cannot have freedom of religion in our common law countries. We just can't have it, and we have to fight hard not to let them have that. Now, so I'm not going to talk about that today. So it says that when I go to the court, and I think this is why the appeals court have let me back in, because when I go to the court, the bill is payable on demand. When I demand that I want this bill that I've given to them answered to, because I'm the director of the company, then they have to answer me. An instrument expressed to be payable on contingency is not a bill, and the happening of the event does not cure. So an instrument, any instrument expressed to be payable on contingency is not a bill, and that comes under all the United Nations laws that have been held against you. So they can't do that. And then the last bit, it says, every party whose signature appears on the bill is a prima facie deemed to have become a party thereto for value. Now, where our bill comes in is here, and for England you've got yours. As soon as you are a subject, the minute you become a subject, then that means that you own this bill and you're able to hold Parliament accountable to it. So we're going to be going back to court. I've called these people. I've called them into the court, not because they've done anything wrong, but because the bill that they have to follow in Parliament, in my opinion, the oath is not being upheld by them, okay? Now, what has happened is, I'm almost going to finish my video and I'm going to sing you a song today. What has happened is that many people have tried to get to the heavenly realm. Now, all of these writs and all of these petitions and all of these things that the Governor-General does and all of these service papers, they're all illegal, they're all void, and the only way you can get the service papers is to actually go to the court. The courts haven't been letting anybody in, and somehow I managed to slip through the system, which I don't even know how it happened, but so many people had gone before me to try to get through, and they kept getting knocked out, and that's why all the common law people were saying, no, you can't go to court because it's the corporation. I have to hide my wrinkles here. But I managed to slip through, and when they got hold of it, they struck me out, they threw me out, and I just, on the last day that I was able to appeal, the appeals court wrote the appeal. They wrote it for me. Why? Well, they didn't write it for me. I had to write it. I wrote it all myself, but they put it through within 2 hours, and I had it in. And so they have been called back to the court. Now what we're fighting is the strike, because they're saying that a layman is not allowed to go to the court under the Declaratory Judgments Act and the 1688 bill that we give to them. This is a bill to them, and they're saying that we can, and they've been saying it for 20 years, 30 years, stopping people from going to the court. And so that's what I've got to fight first. If I pass on that, and they say, yes, Kate, they call me Catherine Sixtus, yes, Catherine, you can take the Prime Minister and all of them to court over the United Nations laws and the trying to force New Zealand to be a republic, trying to force Australia to be a republic, trying to take our countries out of our supreme laws. If they allow me to go to court for that, then that'll be another step. So it's just very, very hard to get in the courts, but I'm going to sing you a song. And what it says is, Jesus, go where I send thee. And then it says, I'm going to send you 2 by 2. 2 by Paul and Silas, and 1 by the little bitty baby who was born in Bethlehem. And I'll tell you why they talk about it. Jesus, when they went to kill Jesus, there's 2 kinds of courts. One is called the court of the hewn stone, and one is called the court of the unhewn stone. The court of the hewn stone are where laws are written, and you know what you can follow, and you know how you can defend, because you've got laws that are written. You've got bills here that are written, and once it's been written, you just can't deny that it says there that I can go to the court and prosecute the Prime Minister if I need to. I can do that. And so that's called the court of the hewn stone. The court of the unhewn stone are ecclesiastical courts. All these common law courts, the international courts of justice, all of those that are done in dark rooms secretly, those courts there are all illegal. And they're all illegal because they don't have written laws. And they just make the laws up as they please. They say, he's guilty, I'm going to throw him in the ditch over the back there. She's guilty, I'm going to, put her upside down and do horrible things to her. So that's called the court of the unhewn stone. And all these courts that you're going to are called courts of the unhewn stone. When they killed Jesus, when the Jews and the Catholics and all those three religions saw Jesus, who was a free radical. Jesus was a Protestant, I believe. Jesus was a Protestant, and he said, I don't want to be in your Jewish laws. I don't want to be in your Islamic laws. I don't want to be in your Catholic laws. I want to be free to just live with God and be me. And they took him to the court of the unhewn stone. In the middle of the night, they slapped him around. They beat him up. And in that court, he wasn't able to defend himself because none of the laws were written. So that's why. Now, presently, they're encouraging you all to go to tribunals, to have meetings, case management meetings. And those are similar to courts of unhewn stone. And whatever declaration that you get put in them, they say they're binding. But push comes to shove. If you want a really binding declaration, you've got to go high up like me to the court of the hewn stone. And so I'm in the court of the hewn stone now, fighting for Jesus. So that's 2 by Paul and Silas and 1 by the little bit of baby. And then the next one, the next group of people who were trying to get in the court